With the time being 6:00 p.m. on Tuesday, January 28th, 2025, I will call this meeting of the Webster School Committee to order and ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, both video and audio, and will be posted on the district website. The first item on the agenda is the discussion and approval of the minutes from the January 14th, 2025 meeting. Is there any discussion around those minutes? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve them.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Desiree, would you please poll the committee?
Member Adamopoulos?
Yes.
Member Sarabia?
Yes.
Member Blythe?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Yes.
Yes, motion passes. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Good evening, Mrs. Perangeli.
Good evening, Mrs. Siddiqui. Good evening, everyone. I will start out tonight, and I promise I will have a brief report for you this evening. It will not be like last meeting, so I'll get started. First of all, we have a personnel update. We have no retirements to report at this time. We do have a few new hires, which we're happy about. We have Kyra Wilder, an ABA at at Bartlett High School. She was a former employee and coming back to us here in Webster. We have an Erica Labar, an ABA at Park Ave Elementary. Jack McPherson, if you recognize the name, he was filling in for Mr. Carney while he was interim assistant principal as a music teacher. He has decided to stay on here as in the role of IA at Bartlett High School. So we're happy to welcome him back and glad he's staying on with us. And then we have Kyle McCann. He is a new custodian at Park Ave Elementary. We did have a recent resignation, David Chiasini. He is an ABA at the Webster Middle School. And we have one transfer that we are announcing with the hire of our new custodian at Park Ave. Mr. Scott Williams will be transferring over to the high school. So below is a list of vacancies that we still have within the district that you see that we've been pretty much steadily carrying throughout the year. I am meeting with a candidate tomorrow for the middle school special ed teacher. So hopefully that goes well, and that's one less position we'll have on the list. And I hope to bring that to you for next meeting. Any questions on personnel? No? Okay. Moving on to our instructional leadership update. On Tuesday, January 21st, we had a full professional development day. As always, I put a copy of the grids in your packet so you can see the work that is going on across the district. A lot of our PD, we align with our instructional priority. So you can see the good work that is being done there. Also, this past week, on Friday, January 24th, we had the rescheduled visit from our Associate Commissioner, Shami Curry, who visited the district. And we toured, we were able to meet here, speak for a little bit, and then we took a tour around the 3 buildings, visited some classrooms. I really messed up the principals who had things nicely scheduled, and we were late. So it always threw a wrench in the plan for them. To scramble last minute and find alternate rooms for us to visit. But it was nice discussion with Ms. Curry, Dr. Curry. Really, it was about looking at SOS and their vision and how they're supporting schools around the state and how we are doing as a district, looking at our systems and structures and what we're putting in place. She did tell me that she's over the past 3 years, she's been coming to Webster. She is pleased with the system changes that she has seen, especially in the last couple of years. And that, on her first visit, she was very well aware that there weren't people using HQIM. Even though we owned it, you didn't see it actively being used in classrooms. All of the classrooms that she went in, she saw our curriculum being used. She saw systems in place. So she's pleased with that work that's been ongoing here in Webster. And then just a couple of other things that benchmarks and access testing have been going on. It's been a busy month with testing. We've had our iReady testing, access testing. We have a meeting with our JILT, our mid-year progress monitoring. So we will be taking a look at our instructional priority and the data to date and figuring out as a district, how has our work been going? How are we seeing gains from the data that we're looking at? And then how do we proceed for the rest of the school year coming up? Are there any questions about instructional leadership? No? Okay. On other updates, on Thursday, January 23rd, I attended the Mass Superintendent's Midwinter Meeting. Attorney General Joy Campbell was there introducing the new social media toolkit that is being made to districts and communities around the state. I'm not sure if you saw her speak a little bit on the news. She was on Channel 5, Fox News, talking about what she presented to superintendents. I did put a copy of the guide that I will be sharing, with our leaders around the district. The toolkit is broken down into 3 sections. The first section is about policy. The second section is about community norms, and the third is about curriculum guidelines. So we'll be reviewing this as a team, looking at it. I mean, she talked about, the cell phone policy that is being looked at across the state to avoid the use of cell phones during the school day with students that they're looking at. They've talked about how detrimental it can be for the development of young students, especially through those middle school years up to 14 years of age, but even beyond. It was very interesting, educational, and they understand that this can't just be something that we approach during the school day, that it's also something that needs to extend out into our families and our homes, and to have those conversations. So I'm hoping somehow we can tie this into family engagement. What does it look like for our families? But we'll talk more about that. But I really thought it was a valuable session to attend, and it was definitely interesting news. So that's there. And then the second half of our day was focused on AI and embracing the potentials and opportunities. There was Dr. Cynthia Brazel from MIT who presented how AI can be used in education. We hear so much about the warnings of AI, what to look out for, but they really were trying to show the positives and what it can be used for, how it could potentially save time in trying to structure certain things for classes, and even beyond. What they're trying to, some of the neat stuff that they showed is how they're trying to implement social cues into the AI. So when you're having a robot interact with a child when they were looking at reading, and how the robot could lean in and kind of gives positive social cues back to the child. So there was that interaction. And she talked about a lot. It was interesting to see how, what a different impact it could have when used appropriately and in the right way. So that was also great. And then we had, of course, the commissioner there to speak a little bit about what he's doing and the work that he's been implementing across the state, an update on the search for a new commissioner. So overall, it was a very good day. It was informative, and I was happy that I was able to attend. It's also nice to connect with other superintendents and have that opportunity to talk about what's going on in their district and how they're handling policies and different things that are happening. And then I had a board meeting, which was scheduled for this past Friday, but of course I had the associate commissioner there, so I had to choose which I wanted to attend, and I chose touring the buildings with the associate commissioner. But I was able to speak with Mr. Lundwall about the budget and the program moving forward. So he discussed what they're looking at the collaborative potential options. As you know, it's budget time of year for everybody. So he's refining his budget, and he'll be, it's still in draft form, so I'm not gonna talk about it publicly, but he'll be bringing back options to us to look at as a committee in the future. And then on, as you know, on Wednesday, January 22nd, we had a training here with a couple of members and the WEA on interest-based bargaining, which was facilitated by Lois Mason. So that was a good training that we had here. I'm happy that we're proceeding that way. Negotiations will be going underway in a couple of weeks. We have a goal of getting it done in a couple of sessions, so we'll see how that goes. And then the February camp that Dr. Mackay reported on at a last meeting will only be held at the Webster Middle School for this February. Unfortunately, we couldn't secure staff at the high school, so we'll just be holding it at our one school. I'm happy to say that at least we can do some good programming, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout of students coming in, because this is something new for us. So we look forward to that. And then also Saturday school has been going really well. This weekend we had 18 middle school students and 14 high school students who were present and working hard. If you were to walk into the cafeteria, you would see high school students sitting at individual tables across working. And it was really, Miss Nieves has been showing up. She showed up, she sat, she spoke with each student, walked around, talked about what they needed to work on, how they could improve their scores, what to focus on. So we're looking at potentially increasing some of our staff. We're finding staff that can come in to assist with certain subject areas, because some of the students were just didn't understand and needed additional help. So who was there that could help them in certain classrooms, you know, with trigonometry or geometry or something like that. So Dr. Mackay is talking to the high school to see what they can do to provide some additional support for some of those kids. As you also probably heard, that the new Title IX laws that we implemented, and you guys were so great in voting in those new policies and procedures over the last few months, had changed and are now being reverted back to 2020. So we have to go back with our legal to make sure we have the correct policies in place. So we'll be updating those again so we can undo what we did in going back to the 2020 policies and make sure they're current and updated, so we can comply with our CR audit, because that was one of the findings of our audit, is that we needed to update our policies. So we will make sure those are up to date and ready to go in the future. And then Dr. Patty Mackay and I sat in on a DESE ICE webinar on Monday morning at 10 o'clock. As you know, this has been a very hot topic and a sensitive topic around the state. I have prepared in your packet a document that I will be sending to our principals and administrative staff across the district with some facts and FAQs about what we should do and how we should respond. But as you know, we are a public school system. This is a safe place for our students and families. When they come here, they are safe. Nobody enters our building without permission, and nobody will be allowed to enter our building without permission. The only way that could happen is if there was a federal warrant. Other than that, there will be no access to our buildings. We are here to provide a safe environment for all of our students here in town. So we have gotten a lot of documentation. We have participated in webinars from all organizations across the state, and are very confident in the materials that we have, and will comply with the law, but we also will comply with providing a safe environment for all of our students and families here in Webster. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Perangeli. Any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, the next item on the agenda is the business manager report. Good evening, Mrs. Contos.
Evening, everyone. This evening, I'm going to start with some maintenance updates across Park Ave and Webster Middle School. As I go through this punch list, these are items that have mostly been serviced already, one still being scheduled to be serviced. certainly with this cold weather, it's taxing all of our mechanicals, and they are showing it. So we did have an issue last Friday with the water heater at Park Ave, didn't have hot water, had that serviced, and the blockage that they found was resolved and addressed. The elevator at the school has continued to be a little temperamental, so we had a reoccurrence since the last time we met. Again, the elevator company came back out, resolved the issue, and we're following up with them to just find out with the repetitive visits, like what was behind that, right? Why wasn't it fixed the first time? So that's a little bit of follow-up that we're doing. Had some temperature issues at Park Ave, in particular in one classroom, discovered that it was an actuator that needed to replace, so that has been fixed. And we're looking to schedule service on the water pump because the drive is not working properly. And at Webster Middle School, also on Friday, heat was impacted in the guidance area, main office, and nurses area. So one of the rooftop units was serviced on Friday to resolve that issue. So I'm hoping for the temperatures to increase soon and not to continue taxing all of the mechanicals. Thank goodness. Any questions? Okay. All right, in other updates this evening, what I wanted to do was give you, we're a little over midpoint at this time, but the fiscal year 25 update on the budget. So in your packet was a budget report from last Friday, which really represents about 58% through the fiscal year. And I'm happy to report that overall, across the district, we have spent 47.6% of the overall budget. We have applied our circuit breaker funds already to the budget across 2 line items within special education to cover tuitions. The good news is, based on projections, we are target to stay obviously within our budget, and at this point aren't indicating that we need to do any budget freezes like we needed to do last year. So I think that's on a positive note. Any questions? Okay, that's all I had for this evening.
Thank you for your updates, Mrs. Contos. No questions or comments from the committee? The next item on the agenda is the principal report. Good evening, Mrs. Poliaco.
Good evening. So I'm first going to start with some events. I have not been here since November, so that has obviously been a lot of events, but I'll keep those fairly brief. Recently, over January, our guidance staff, in conjunction with our family liaison, have been hosting parent chats. So they did a kindergarten one, a grade 1 and 2 combined, and a grade 3 and 4, inviting families in or by Zoom to really just talk about the issues of raising those various age groups, what things they're facing. You know, for some it's technology use, for some it's bedtime and routine. So just really giving an open forum for families to come and problem solve, get some professional advice from our counseling team, but also share thoughts with each other around some of the common issues that our families face. So it was a nice opportunity for them to network and meet other families. But I think technology use will probably certainly be a topic that we don't think of students in our younger ages having cell phones, but they certainly have iPads and whatnot and tablets. So it'll certainly be, and that just sort of is a gateway to the cell phone. Our preschool teams had a Donuts with Grown-Ups event where our students could invite a special adult, whoever that might be, to come to their classrooms for activities and donuts. Our younger students like preschool, it's always well-attended event. Our PTO held in December our winter literacy event, which has, for many of you have been to these, stations with 4 winter-themed activities around literacy, math, and art, followed by a read aloud and hot cocoa and cookies. And thank you to our art teacher, Miss Descanio, for being our mystery snowman reader this year. Last year it was Miss Ohutsky, this year Miss Descanio. Who it will be next year, we don't know. Book bingo, we also had book bingo in January. That was a free event for families. and the cafeteria was nearly full. Which if you've been in our cafeteria and seen all of those tables, which was fantastic. So that was great to have so many families out. Thank you to Ms. Tatro for being our bingo caller. And for both events, thank you to our PTO, really headed up by Ms. Alicia Smith, and Ms. Jen Gardner, who do a lot of work around pulling these events off. And we also have many teachers who come to volunteer to scoop popcorn or, hand out flyers, hand out materials. So they're really nice coordination between the parents and the teachers. I also wanted to talk a little bit about our PD opportunities that our teachers have had recently. In December, most of our classroom teachers were in a PD that was presented by our coach, Tara Gelino, and it was focused on some of the routines used in our new math program. We had done a guided walkthrough with a consultant from Eureka Math Squared, who helped us look at our implementation integrity. And from that walkthrough data, our coach designed some PD specifically to our teachers and what they needed. So it was a really nice carryover of really specifically what we saw in the classrooms directly into what teachers needed to be more successful with the new program. In January, as I've just heard, you have the grids from our January PD. We continued some Eureka training with a presenter from the publisher, and it was really focused on intentional planning, which is part of our instructional priority. The facilitator walked teachers through planning for their next set of lessons. So really useful guided planning and something that they could walk away and use very soon, which is important for PD. You want it to be actionable immediately for teachers. Our unified arts teachers worked with a consultant on supporting ELL students in the classrooms. And our instructional assistants worked on a consultant specifically on fostering independence in students. So a very important topic as we provide our supports to students, especially students with special needs. How are we growing their independence to no longer be needing that person with them? We've heard people that we've interviewed say, my job is to no longer have a job. Our goal is to really build the independence in our students. So really thank you to Debbie Rivera for arranging some really great professional developments for our teachers that I think teachers walked away really with some really great work there. Also, kudos to Jess Ohutsky, my assistant principal. She regularly provides optional PDs, and she did an optional PD in December on genre writing and an optional PD on best practices in reading for ELL students. That was in January. And as I said, they're optional. They run before and after school. So, not only Jess, but big shout out to the teachers who are coming before or after school to take these PDs and grow their knowledge and in service of our students. My last piece is going to be presented by Ms. Smolars and Ms. Hutsky on Big Brother, Big Sister, which is happening at the elementary school in conjunction with the high school. You guys want to come up? Jerry can.
So very excitedly, we have been able to get the program Big Brother, Big Sister in Webster and got it started really later in the fall. This was about our third or fourth session that we ran today. Last year, I saw a real need for our students to have a mentor, a friend that was really just for them, somebody that they could talk to. They make really great relationships with our school staff, but just really someone just dedicated to them. And from my prior experience, I had worked with Big Brother, Big Sister, and I had really seen the impact that it could make. When I approached the program, Big Brother, Big Sister, they reviewed with me a newer opportunity that they had that was in conjunction with the district's high school. And so we really felt as though that was a good fit for us because it really helped to benefit the high school students in getting some community service hours, and then also really benefited our students. The program Big Brother, Big Sister also talked about how this program was a 2-year program. So really targeting some of those elementary age students and really building their skills for 2 years. So the program really looks to target some social emotional skills, some various social and friend making skills, some really just kind of life skills through a very developmentally appropriate manner, as well as through a way that they can work on it with a big and with a mentor. So moving forward into our school year, teachers in conjunctions with our adjustment counselors made some recommendations on students that they felt would benefit from this. We opened it up to our 2nd and our 3rd graders. We did want to be mindful that the program was really built to have that 2-year continuum with students. So we opened it up to those students, and huge shout out to our family liaison, Wes, who was really instrumental in talking with families, helping teachers get interest with the littles, helping families fill out the application form. She continues to be really instrumental in making sure that the program runs successfully. And so we currently have 12 littles, again, who span both in 2nd grade and 3rd grade. Big Brother, Big Sister puts them through a developmentally appropriate but quite an extensive interview process so that they can be really thoughtfully paired with a big from the high school. So they really pride themselves on creating partnerships between the little and the big that are most impactful and will really help to connect the students. So the program runs about every other Tuesday for about an hour. We are looking forward to some of the nicer weather where our bigs and littles can get outside to play, but right now it's been a lot of getting to know you activities and various different activities within our cafeteria. I included some pictures so that you guys can see. They have draft day, which is where the littles get paired with their bigs and the students get so excited. And this is them filling out a getting to know you survey. I know from speaking to our students afterwards, a lot of them really look forward to that time with their big. And before the meeting today, Barbara actually shared with me a story about one of the bigs who couldn't make it and wrote a note to his little describing, oh, I'll see you next time. And so it's really great to see these partnerships start to be created. Something that I think I'll look forward to next year is getting it up and going. We did have a target date to start it in October, but unfortunately, we did start it a bit later than our target date, so it will be good to try and get it started a bit earlier next year. I do have a huge shout out to everyone involved, including Barbara up at the high school. This would not be possible without her. Again, our family liaison, Wes de Oliveira, my administration over at Park Ave for being so supportive of it, as well as district administration, Mo and Lisa, who have been really helpful in getting transportation set up for the high school and giving this program the go-ahead. So I can say on the elementary side, it's having a hugely beneficial effect. Barbara, for the high school side.
Thank you. So I'm Barbara Smallars, the re-engagement specialist at Bartlett, my 2nd year in this position, although I've been with the district for years. And thank you also. The amount of work you have done is incredible. Thank everybody as well for letting us speak on behalf of the bigs and littles. I am so proud of them. I tell our bigs, I don't think they understand the grasp. They can't grasp it yet, but I tell them all the time. So I would just like to take a couple minutes to share with you some feedback and experiences from this recent partnership with Big Brothers Big Sisters, particularly regarding the incredible involvement of our high school students. But instead of my words, I want to share what the students are saying. I gathered some reflections from our students, and when they were asked about their overall experience, they've said things like, I think it has helped me as a person by giving me more patience. It's great seeing the different sides of the kids and hanging out with a new generation. It helps me grow in a lot of ways, teaching me life lessons, be patient and gentle when talking and mentoring these kids. It gives me different perspectives. But I do see them throughout the day. They come into my office. They're always like, I can't wait for Tuesday. I love my little. I'm obsessed with my little. They're so smart. So it's all been positive. And lastly, with her permission, I wanted to share an email I received from Katie Roy. She is the vice president of programs that we directly work with. She was talking about an experience she had at a different school to give perspective. And she said, in fact, there are so many engaged, interested, motivated kiddos coming from Bartlett. The fact that there are so many engaged, interested, motivated kiddos coming from Bartlett is a true testament to the values the school is clearly teaching and the standards the students are being held to. Now more than ever, I am so grateful to partner with you. Just thought I would share. So I think this feedback speaks volumes about the caliber of students we're fostering at Bartlett. The commitment, engagement, motivation displayed by our students in this program stand as a reflection of the values being instilled in them. So thank you all for supporting programs like these to help shape our students into compassionate, motivated individuals.
Any questions about the program?
Just a comment. Thank you for bringing this to our students. Both our high school students and our elementary students clearly are benefiting in huge ways from these relationships. So look forward to more updates as the year goes on.
Yeah.
And now these students, would the intention be that these duos continue next year also? So our high school students are what, 10th and 11th grade, or?
We do have some seniors. We had a really big turnout. I think we have like 22 or
We did.
23
Oh, wow.
students from Bartlett. So it's been excellent. So many that we have to double up on some of the littles.
Oh,
but
wow.
It's great, and they don't mind.
The littles love it.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
It's a lot of attention, yeah.
And like she said, hopefully next year we'll get it going sooner.
Yeah. Great. The big thing is just getting it going. And you've done the hard part already, so the rest will fall into place. Great. Any other questions or comments from anybody?
I just want to give you both a shout out and thank you so much for the partnerships. You know, we have been talking as a team and trying to build those partnerships between schools, and we need to communicate and work with each other. And this is just an example of this is not something we asked for. This is something they brought to us. They did the work on this. They did it all on their own. And so you can see who wins just by the pictures. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. And it's just something to be really proud of. We have great kids. We have great staff. So thanks.
Great. Thank you. Couldn't agree more. Ms. Pugliafico, does that conclude your update? Do you have anything to add?
No, just, big congratulations to them for a very successful, I mean, especially for the first go,
Yes.
to have that much participation right off the bat. I think it'll only grow from here. So I think they've done a fantastic job.
Agree. Great. Any questions or comments from the committee for Ms. Pugliafico? Well, once again, thank you.
Thank you.
Great stuff happening at Park Avenue as usual. Next item on the agenda is an update from our student representative. Good evening, Hope.
Good evening. I think it's working. It's green. So, just for some updates, I have that grades for semester 1 have closed, and we have begun the second semester of the school year, which I'm personally very excited about. Yes, Saturday school has continued to ensure that students are maintain passing grades. I know, like I've discussed it with a few other students, and anybody that they weren't going to pass a class, they were offered the opportunity to go to Saturday school to boost that grade. And a lot of them were very happy to have that option because they were nervous about not passing. Um, we also had the Student Council and National Honor Society who were selling Krispy Kreme donuts. That has closed and the deliveries will be sent out on Friday. We have study sync benchmarks that have begun, and Bio MCAS boot camp has continued. For upcoming events, we have iReady ELA has begun for grades 9 through 12. Our first day was today, and then we have tomorrow and makeups for the rest of the week in our homerooms. We have the senior athletes have been given the opportunity to apply for the National Interscholastic Athletic Administrations Association Scholar, which is essentially like opportunity that they have. They get to apply via essay, and they can go to Miss Nieves for further details, as well as her newsletter, which gives you information on how to apply and where to send in your essay. We have the PBIS Valentine's Day dance, which is going to be February 14th. We have students that are able to purchase tickets for $20 at lunch from the 3rd of February to the 13th. They can also use Bartlett Bucks, and they can do half and half. So if they want to do half cash, half Bartlett Bucks, they can. We have our senior overnight the date has been set for May 30th, and the committee is starting to form, and we're starting to plan our different activities and what will be happening on senior overnight. And then finally, I just have that we have our next basketball game is this Thursday at Grafton for JV and varsity. That's it. It's short tonight.
Thanks for your updates, Hope.
Of course.
Any questions or comments from the committee?
And through the chair,
Ms. Blake?
do you have a location yet for the overnight? Are you doing it at the school or?
I think as of right, it's going to be at the school either way. I think what part of the school is going to
Yes,
depend on
okay.
construction.
That's why the question.
So
Okay,
yeah, it will be at the school either way.
Great.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
it'll
what
be
we're
in the gymnasium.
that's
is
what
I'm
we're
hearing.
that's
that'd
what
be
we're
great.
crossing our fingers for. So
That would be great.
we'll hope.
All right. Well, once again, thanks for your updates, Hope. Always nice to see you.
Of course, you too.
The next item on the agenda, under old business, is the FY26 budget update.
Thank you. So as you know, we presented our first draft of the budget last week. We were waiting for updated revenues numbers to come out. They usually, state releases their budget on the fourth Wednesday of the month. And as promised, they did release the budget. So Lisa is here, Lisa Contos is here to talk about the budget, our business manager, and she will review what the state has released.
Great. Okay, before we dive into the details, couple things. In your packet, you do have some information, probably a lot more than you needed, but reference information should you need it. So there's information from DESE, the DLS cherry sheets, as well as the governor's briefing about their budget, and some information from the Mass Taxpayers Foundation. So that's all reference for you, should you need that. As we dive into this, as the superintendent said, the governor released her budget last week. And overall, in terms of aid to districts, it's an increase of 6.1%. What's important for us to remember is these are preliminary estimates at this point. They are subject to change as they progress through the House and Senate deliberations. And that will continue. Actually, I believe there's, in your packet, there is a budget overview of the process. So if you're not familiar with the timeline and who it goes through, that was one of the Mass Taxpayer Foundation documents that you have. So that's available to you. So what we have here is, this is a summary report that shows the full Chapter 70 aid calculation. And what you can see, I'm going to do this in two different ways, look at my notes and read the screen. So what you see here is it starts on the left-hand side, and it always starts with your prior year Chapter 70 funding. And then it looks to jump into determining the district's foundation budget and its required contribution. The right-hand side, we have some comparisons. Couple things I want to point out as we look through this. So when the overall calculation is being derived for the foundation budget, there's 3 key factors that come into play. One is enrollment. We talked a lot about that at the last meeting. There's a wage adjustment factor that the state looks at. And then there's an inflation factor that's set. This year, they landed with, I wanted to get it, I believe it was 1 point, nope, was it 1.6? Trying to grab it. Let me go back to that. I thought it was 1.6, but I can't get it handy. And then from a local standpoint, what they do is when they look at your local community, they look at property value, they look at the community's income, and then the municipal growth factor. What we have for a municipal growth factor right now for Webster is 4.02. And our property wealth is 8.8 million, a little over 8.8 million in total. Thank you. Sorry, it's 1.93 is the inflation factor. Thank you. And so overall, when we break down the aid and the contribution, the total or the target local share is, almost 47%, while the target aid from the state is 53%. On the left-hand side, when we look at that foundational aid, you can see that on item number 5, our increase over last year is a little over 1.28 million. Right below that is minimum aid. Luckily for us, that does not apply to us, but in the event that the calculation determines that you're not receiving an increase, you may end up with what they call minimum aid, which is $75 per pupil, and you can see what that amount would have looked like for us if we had only gotten the minimum aid increase, which would have just been $144,000. So we are very fortunate that we are getting the increase that we are getting over last year. Bottom corner shows you that trend that we've been seeing over the last 5 years. And we're going to get into the comparisons in more detail, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it on this slide, so we can move to the next one. So again, going back to talking about enrollment and a lot of the demographic information that we provided in the last meeting. So the way in which the calculation works is you can see over the top, there are 13 enrollment categories that we look at. And then on the left-hand side, you see 11 different functional areas that they look at when they think about how a school functions overall. And then the calculation is applied across that. The enrollment categories 1 through 7 is what your base foundation is made up of. And then incremental above that in the enrollment categories of 8 through 13 are those increases over the base, which are focused on special education and English learners. So that's the composition of that. We've talked a little bit about this in the lower left-hand corner. You will see that we are we're in low-income group 11 with our overall district at 76% in the low-income bracket. Okay, let's move on to, any questions before I move on? Okay, let me go to the next slide. So what does this mean? So let's take a look at that. So our overall increase in our Chapter 78 is 6.39 over last year, and the increase for the district or local contribution is 5.49. So our foundation budget is exactly what our required net school spending of $35 million, 35.6 is what we're required to spend, and then those percentages are broken down with the Chapter 70 as well as our required district contribution. So those are the overall numbers. So let's take a look at how that lines up with what we've seen historically over the last few years. This is a little hard to see, but the first 3 columns show you our actuals across fiscal year 23, 24, and 25. And I'm going to look at my notes here because I can't read it from this far. And so I just want to highlight in fiscal years 23, we actually spent 9.27% above the net required spending. In fiscal year 24, we spent 6.53% over the net requirement. And then this past year, we were 3.51% over that net required school spending. What we have in the fiscal year '25 is we put in the numbers that we got in these preliminary estimates at the very top of the foundation budget. In the middle section is really just a projection of what our shared costs will be with the town. And so understanding how the formula works is that the town contribution, what we do and the process that we follow is we deduct those shared costs that we get from the town, and that gets deducted from the town's local contribution. So you see that in the third section. So you can see that the minimum town contribution, and this is the preliminary, is 14.3 million. But then we look at those shared costs that we have with the town. And again, these are projections at this point, but that's 8.2 million. And so the areas that that covers, just to highlight that for people who be watching, is it covers things like tuition, charter, and school choice, town salaries for shared services like the town accountant, the town treasurer, and payroll functions. There's operating and maintenance, so that's support from the DPW. There's the employee insurance costs as well as employee retirement contributions, and then there's some other miscellaneous insurance. So those are all things that the town contributes towards the school spend, and that's deducted off of that required amount that the local community is expected to spend. So let me just pause there because that's a lot of information and just see what questions we have before we talk a little bit about what next steps are for us internally with the district leadership team. Are there any? Okay, so in terms of next steps, some of the things we have lined up, the superintendent and I will be meeting with the town administrator and town accountant this week to have conversations now that this was released. We also have district leadership meetings scheduled where we have some work to do. All right, so we're going to take a hard look across our budget because as you know, we did present a preliminary departmental request budget, which was over 8%. And so based on these initial release of numbers, there is some work that we need to do. Do you want to add anything to that?
I think we are looking, I don't know if the committee has any thoughts or guidance from the last meeting. I mean, we have typically gone through a practice as a team where we will work on reductions at certain percentages to see what the budget would look like. I didn't know if the committee had a percentage in mind that they wanted to bring back. As you know, we are required by charter to send a budget downtown by February 28th. After that, the town is just starting to work on their budget, so they haven't had a budget. They're just starting to put theirs together. After we send that down, we continue to have conversation with our town leaders as they put together their department to see where we're going to end up as we get more financials. So our obligation now is to say, we need to send a budget downtown for February 28th. What that budget will be. Do you want to send an 8%? Do you want us to get it down? See what that looks like before you decide what you want to send. If you're asking us, do we think we're going to get an 8% budget just based off the initial revenue that we had? The answer is no. But, you know, what options do you want us to bring back to you moving forward? As we meet and continue to think through this budget.
I'll open it up to the committee to comment on that. I know in years past, we've had budget workshops where members of administrative teams and even members of, you know, teams in general from each school have had the opportunity to sit down and present some of their top priorities directly to the committee. I don't know. I found that to be informative. I know that the numbers are what they are, but it, I think, can add a level of sort of direct talk for staff and members of the teams at each individual school to have our ear and at least to be able to hear what is important. So that's something that we may consider. We do have a little bit of time.
I think we did that in March last year. Was it
Yep.
February, March? I'd have to look back and see what month we did that. I don't know if it was after we sent it down. I can't remember, but I can check back on that. For some reason, I want to say I think it was early March that we did it, but I'm not positive. And I'm certainly happy to arrange that again, so we can sit down as a team to discuss what our budget looks like and what impacts might have. I always think, as a practice, we're going to meet as a committee, as a team, and be prepared, because we need to have scenarios in our head. We need to talk through. We need to work through. And we're going to do that regardless. That's our work. I just didn't know if you wanted us to focus on a certain number or have any thoughts about what you would like us to bring back to you for future meetings. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything right away. It can wait. We're required by charter to send something down to the town by February 28th. We don't even know if we're going to have solid revenue numbers by then to deal. There's going to be more work that needs to be done after February 28th.
I certainly don't have a number in mind.
Mhm.
I have every confidence that each of our buildings are running really lean already and that there's nothing in our budget that is sort of extra. So I certainly would leave it to the experts to determine how we proceed, and at least providing you all the opportunity to present us with a good faith attempt at providing high quality education to our students with the limited finances that we have available.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll continue to work on our end and do that work and have those difficult conversations and come up with a few different scenarios so we're prepared, because it's always good to think through all of our options together as a team. And then as we find out more information from the town, we will certainly keep you informed, definitely of what our future revenue looks like. As we move through the process and we get better numbers from the community to see what our revenue looks like on the town side of things coming in.
And the only other thing I'll add is just going back to some of the projections we did for the town costs for fiscal year '26, we applied a COLA number to that for the most part on all of those items of 3%. The insurance rates haven't been set yet, so those are things that are unknown at this point. So I did want to point that out, that while I gave you those numbers, that was kind of a flat COLA increase. We need to get more precise numbers to know the full impact.
Thanks, Ms. Contos. And another important variable that we have at play right now is our collective bargaining agreements are up this year as well.
Yep.
And that's something that we don't have numbers on as yet, but will certainly impact our bottom line.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yep.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? No.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the capital improvement program.
Yep. Okay, so in the October meeting for this school year, I actually presented an initial draft of the capital improvement plan that we needed to submit down to the town accountant by the end of October. As promised, we're coming back now with a revision to that because it does need to be submitted in February so that they can plan that as they start looking at the overall town budget. So what you have in your packet, it's essentially the same content, but it is reformatted into the template that the town uses for how they bring the capital improvement plan forward. This is a requirement by all town departments that we're managing our overall facilities and needs and capital needs, and we all submit these to the town accountant. So what happens is every department will submit this, identify which fiscal year they're targeting to potentially get the funding for. It doesn't mean that when this gets submitted, that it'll actually be on town meeting this May. It really depends on what everybody else is submitting and how that prioritization works. So that is why the town accountant really wants to get this, so then they can start looking at what's available for free cash, what are the departments looking for, what kind of prioritization do we need to go through. So I just want to clarify that as we look at this. So when I talked about the reformatting, another thing that you'll see that, or you may recognize that we did with this one is in two areas, we broke it out into short-term solutions versus long-term solutions. Those two items are around our exterior courts on this campus, our tennis court, as well as our exterior basketball court. So two of the items that we have on here for fiscal year '26 is really doing a short-term fix on those. There's a lot of cracking on those courts. And, you know, that's really essentially due to general frost heaves, wear and tear. But we do have safety concerns as those cracks get bigger, and it is a concern during tennis season. So the remediation plan that we have as our short-term fix on all of those courts is really to clean, fill, and seal all of those cracks and paint where we need to on the impacted areas. So we have those two items. The tennis courts projected at $40,000 and the two basketball courts at $50,000. At the top of the list is our electrical controller head for the head panels for the electrical panels. So basically what it is, it's a head controller that interfaces with the software so that you can use the auto scheduling in the software to schedule when lights go on and when they go off. You get a lot of efficiency by using the software and having those settings. You can automatically have lights shut off and have them on schedules. Ours are broken, right? They basically had a surge at one point in time and they're not working, so we have to manually go and shut off all the lights. And that is projected at a cost of $30,000. There's a few other items on here. We aren't targeting at this point in time a fiscal year that we're requesting anything for, and we don't have full estimates on those at this time, so we're not prepared to move forward with those. So this would be the full list that we'd want to submit to the town to have on file with 3 items for fiscal year '26 consideration for a total of $120,000.
Thank you, Mrs. Contos. Any questions or comments from the committee about this capital improvement program? I just have one. The tennis courts, we did them recently, didn't we?
We did them 6 years ago.
Oh, it was 6 years ago already? Wow, it feels like not that long ago. Okay,
It's actually a little cheaper than when we did the first time.
sure. Wow.
Yeah, and essentially, the long-term fix is the ideal way to go. You know, the top of that court really needs to be pulverized. It needs a better base on it so that it won't continue to move and settle and crack. Unfortunately, there were a lot of boulders used to build that hill, and so when it settles, we have cracking.
Okay. All right. If there are no other questions or comments from the committee, I'll entertain a motion to approve this capital improvement program as presented.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Desiree, would you please pull the committee?
Member Adamopoulos?
Yes.
Member Storyfield?
Yes.
Member Blythe?
Yes.
Member Miller?
Yes.
Chair Siddiqui?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you all for the time and effort that you put into this plan. And I think, you know, proactively addressing these things as we have historically, but particularly the tennis courts, you know, it felt like just yesterday that we did them, but it's nice to know that staying on top of them will help us actually reduce the cost by, you know, not allowing them to get in a state of disrepair.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda under new business is the first reading of policy JKAA, physical restraint of students.
I will turn it over to our interim director of student support services, Ms. Sherry Hare.
Good evening, Ms. Hare.
Good evening. Thank you, Superintendent Priangeli. So in response to the tiered focus monitoring, it was noticed as part of the review that the last restraint policy update was in 2015. So a new one was updated to include a shift in some new language, and that's why we are here today presenting it to you for your review.
Were there any major changes made to the policy from the last time?
It doesn't seem to be the case that there are major changes, but it looks like the shift in language had to do with the removal of procedures. So the focus on the restraint policy is policy-based, and then another separate document would be around developing procedures.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any questions or comments from the committee? All right. Well, that will have been the first reading. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of donations. There's a number of things here. Actually, the SEL materials and toys from Veterans Inc. in Worcester to the preschool at Park Ave Elementary. Did you want to speak to that, Mrs. Perangeli?
Just want to turn my mic on. I just want to thank them for the donations to our preschool at Park Ave. As always, there are so many generous people in our community, and we appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Great, agree. Any questions or comments from the committee? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept these donations.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Desiree, would you please pull the committee?
Yes.
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 Yes, motion passes. And once again, thank you to Veterans Inc. for their donation. And the next item on the agenda is a review, transfer, signing of warrants, bills, payroll, and vouchers. And we do have a transfer request in the amount of $3,399.11. And that's going to be from the Webster Middle School Student Activity Savings Account to the checking account. Any questions about that? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve that transfer request.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Desiree, would you please pull the committee?
Member Adamopoulos? Yes. Mr. Ricca? Yes. Member Blythe?
Yes.
Member Miller? Yes. Chair Siddiqui?
Yes, motion passes. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Desiree, would you please poll the committee?
Yes. Member Scurry? Yes. Member Blythe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Good night, everyone.